Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nursing Surgery Day 5 with your nurse Haiqal from Group 26. Today, I will be telling you about suicide precautions. Now, before we begin with any of that, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get this idea stick in our minds, which is suicide does not care for who you are. Whether you are a successful businessman or born in royalty, or you're living in poverty itself and not having anywhere to go, both of those very different situations can also have people with suicidal thoughts. This is where we say suicide does not discriminate and can happen to anybody at all in our society. Since suicidal thoughts can be very difficult for healthcare workers such as nurses to see and point out before it is too late, how do we even manage to point it out then? Well, as a precaution, thankfully there are risk factors for healthcare workers to observe, and we can remember it in an acronym called SAD personas. We begin by explaining the acronym SAD personas with the first letter, which is letter S. So the letter S stands for sex. This is where statistically a higher number of males in the population would commit suicide as compared to females. Next would be the letter A. A stands for age. Statistically, it is also shown that people between the age of 15 to 25, as well as people who are above 60, are those that make up the huge percentage of people that commit suicide. The D would stand for depression. This is where we see people who exhibit symptoms of depression. At the end of the day, we do not want them to commit suicide, which is what most depressed people would do. The P stands for previous attempt. This is where it is a big red flag for healthcare workers if the patient that they have at hand has had a record of them attempting suicide. The E will be ethanol abuse or any drug addiction that would lead them to have suicidal thoughts. Next will be R, which is rational thinking loss, as well as the S, where the social supports are lacking. This is where we see if people do not have social support, for example, once they already finish working and cannot work at companies anymore, such as above the age of 60, then they will have financial problems, which would lead towards a contributory factor for suicide. The O stands for organized plan for suicide. That means the suicidal thoughts have gotten into the patient's mind and it has caused them to already organize it. For example, they already know at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday, I'll be taking a lot of pills in the toilet and I will overdose from it. Next would be no spouse, the N in SAD personas. No spouse means that the person has no responsibilities to look after or even no human connection to another human. So the act of being and feeling alone is something not very nice for a human being, considering we are social people. Next would be the A, which is availability of lethal means. Well, there is a study done on why men would kill themselves more than females. It is because men, usually in the United States, for example, have the availability of having handguns. And because of them having a higher availability of lethal means, they would have a higher success rate in suicide. Last but not least would be the S, which is sickness. Being sick with a disease with no cure, for example cancer, will lead a lot of people to want to kill themselves instead of going through the pain, such as now we see a lot of people would opt for euthanasia. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen, those are all of the risk factors for suicide themselves in the acronym, once again, SAD personas. May it help us all.